Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Revenge is Ice Cream. First up we have The Police Couldn't Help Us Recover the Stolen Games, So My Brother Did, by Lunar X-Wing. Okay, story time. This happened about 10 years ago. The event itself was pretty traumatic for my wife, so I haven't really talked about it much until now. Some background. About 11 years ago, my wife and I were in our early 20s, living in a large 3-bedroom apartment. It was surprisingly spacious and cheap because it was in a terrible neighborhood, and the building itself was pretty run down. At the time, I was the only full-time worker. I had actually quit my previous full-time job and was juggling multiple kitchen jobs just to make ends meet. My wife was attending university while also working part-time. Since we had extra space, we rented out one of the bedrooms. The third bedroom was mostly used as an office and storage room. The tenant, Bob, answered our online ad looking for a roommate. Honestly, Bob was a great tenant. He was quiet, kept to himself, paid rent on time, never stole our food, and was always respectful whenever we talked. We really had no complaints. About 5 months after Bob moved in, my wife found out she was pregnant. We were thrilled. Since we'd obviously need the spare bedroom for the baby, we let Bob know and politely asked him to start looking for another place. We weren't kicking him out immediately, we gave him months of notice. The baby wasn't due for another 9 months, so there was no rush. About 2 months later, Bob moved out without any problems. He relocated a couple of cities away, and we figured that would be the last we'd ever hear of him. We were very, very wrong. About 2 weeks after Bob moved out, my wife was looking through her Nintendo DS and 3DS game collection because she wanted to replay something. Both of us are lifelong gamers, and we each have pretty sizable collections from our childhood. As she started opening the cases, every single one of her games was gone. Not a few, every single one. The weird part, only her games were missing. Mine were all still there. She completely broke down. We searched the apartment from top to bottom, hoping they'd somehow been misplaced. Nothing. Eventually I called Bob. I didn't accuse him. I simply asked if he knew anything about the missing games. The second he realized it was me calling, he hung up. Then he blocked my number. Way to confess, Bob. A few minutes later, I started getting non-stop automated prank calls. The messages mocked us with things like, "My games now, bitches." That's what's known as a digital high five and does constitute proof of a crime, I believe. It honestly felt surreal. My wife was about 4 or 5 months pregnant by then, and she was absolutely devastated. Those games weren't just worth money, they were part of her childhood. Some of them couldn't easily be replaced. I called the police, filed a report. I even told them exactly who I believed had stolen them, without proof. The message was proof. There was nothing they could do. After spending days trying everything I could think of, I made my wife a promise. I'll replace every single game you lost. I posted online with a complete list of the missing games, explaining they had been stolen, and asking if anyone happened to be selling copies at reasonable prices. I wasn't expecting much. A few days later, I had just arrived at work for a 14-hour shift at a restaurant 2 cities away. I was literally about to start my morning prep when my phone buzzed. I assumed it was someone responding to my post about the games. Instead, it was a message from a complete stranger. They had seen my post. They saw someone else post the exact same list of games for sale, every single title, all loose cartridges, no cases. The stranger messaged me saying they thought they had found the thief. I couldn't believe it. I thanked them over and over and even offered them a finder's fee, which they politely refused. I immediately explained everything to my boss. Thankfully, he already knew what happened and was incredibly understanding. Our head cook covered my prep while I tried to figure things out. First call the police again. I explained that I had found someone selling every stolen game. Again, they said that without proof, there wasn't much they could do. So I realized I was on my own. Proof like going there to where the games are being sold and finding that your wife's fingerprints are on every fucking game. Unfortunately, I was stuck 2 cities away from home and nowhere near the cellar, so I did something I never did before. I called my brother. My brother and I are complete opposites. I am the nerd who likes computers and video games. Let's just say he knows people. Growing up, we fought constantly and never really got along. We'll call him Shady. Come on now. When I explained everything, all of our differences disappeared. He simply said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it, but I need a couple of things from you." Shady had recently been released from jail on bail. A poet. So he wanted to be careful. He needed someone who could positively identify Bob. The only other person besides me who actually had met Bob was my wife, so I asked if she'd be willing to go. She agreed. I could hear how difficult it was for her, but she wanted those games back. The next problem, Shady didn't have a car. Neither did any of my friends. Then I remembered someone, my best friend's mother. She was one of the sweetest church-going ladies you'd ever meet, the type of person who volunteered, fed the homeless, and helped anyone who needed it. I had helped their family fix up their house before, so I figured I'd at least ask. I honestly expected her to laugh and tell me absolutely not. Instead, she sounded excited. When I asked if she'd be willing to drive my brother a couple of cities away so he could potentially confront someone who stole from us, she happily said yes. A bit like when Jesus confronted the moneylenders in the temple. Everything after this point is second-hand, based on what everyone later told me. Shady arrived at my apartment. He wasn't alone, he brought a friend. We'll call him Tweaker, because I'd never met him before, and according to my wife, he couldn't stop twitching. I later learned he'd also recently gotten out of jail for assault charges. So there stood my pregnant wife, my brother, Tweaker, waiting outside for the nicest church lady imaginable to pick them up. Meanwhile, I'm still 2 cities away trying to work my shift while wondering how badly this could all go. Apparently, the church lady was having the time of her life. She kept saying, "This is so exciting." Meanwhile, Shady and Tweaker were discussing how they were going to handle things if Bob tried anything. They arranged to meet Bob at an almost abandoned gas station outside of town, a place that was apparently a common meet-up spot for buying and selling stuff. According to everyone there, this is what happened. When they arrived, my wife stayed inside the van and confirmed that the person waiting was definitely Bob. Shady and Tweaker were fully expecting a fight. I somehow feel that Bob, in assuming that you didn't have a spine, in fact didn't have a spine himself. But let's read on. Then they actually saw him. It was then Shady realized Bob was just an overweight, nerdy-looking guy. Shady later told me, "The second I saw him, I knew this was going to be easy." The two of them casually walked over. They greeted Bob. Shady pulled out a thick wad of cash and fanned it out so Bob knew he had the money. Then he asked to inspect the games first. Bob handed over the entire collection. Shady passed the games to Tweaker, then looked Bob dead in the eyes and said, "These games belong to my brother. You stole them." At that moment, my wife stepped out of the van. She wasn't yelling. She just asked him one simple question. Why? Bob realized he'd been set up. Oh, that guy was set up the day his mama fucked his daddy. He looked at Shady. He looked at Tweaker. He looked at my pregnant wife, and he just walked away. He never answered her. He never asked for the games back. He just left. When I got home that night, I thanked my friend's mom for driving everyone. Then I thanked my brother. Honestly, before that day, I never had much respect for him. We spent most of our lives butting heads. But when my wife needed help, and I couldn't be there, he didn't hesitate. He just handled it. Let's just say I owe my brother more than he'll probably ever know. I'd imagine Bob couldn't fully articulate why he stole the game because it was such a petty reason. You asked him to move out. You gave him plenty of time. I mean, realistically, 9 months for the baby to get here on average. Usually the baby's going to stay with the parents for a little bit afterwards before it's moved into its own room. That guy could have potentially had like a year to find a new place, which in many places is the length of a lease. He was just a petty little bitch whose feelings got hurt. That's most likely your explanation. Story number 2. What that was? Okay, story number 2. I sent out my ex-boss for notifications regarding a donation in honor of a guy he wrote up who turned out to have cancer. By Emo Gamer BF XXX. Some backstory. My ex-boss was the bane of my existence when I worked for him. This story isn't about me, though. It's about the manager he treated poorly up until he died from cancer. The manager, Jacob, was amazing. When I got hired, he was the one who did my interview, and he was very upfront about the expectations of the job, and overall a very nice man. Our job wasn't exactly a modest one, but he said it was thanks to us that the corporate could run smoothly, and without us it wouldn't succeed. A year or two in, corporate hired his new boss, Dale. Dale already had a bad reputation in the corporation with other facilities, and he wasn't exactly the nicest. My brother was also familiar with Dale in the corporation, and when he heard he was the new chief, my brother got frustrated. Needless to say, Dale was not a favorite with customers. How he got the job is beyond me. My manager oversaw our department and another department, and there were 2 other managers who oversaw the other 2 departments, 4 in total, with Jacob overseeing 2. This used to be a 2-manager job. Jacob had been asking for them to hire a second manager again, so the workload wasn't so overwhelming. Both of these departments are the biggest, basically around 75 people, while the other 2 were only about 30, and eventually they hired a second person, a woman. After about a year, Jacob confessed our new boss had been writing him up over and over again for super minor things, like paint jobs not being the good shade of red, or not staying over to help out when he was leaving at scheduled times. Doing a workday and then finishing when you're meant to leave? Who'd have thunk it? He told us in all his years of working there, and even anywhere at all, he's never been written up. He was less than 5 years away from retiring, and was talking about spending the remaining years working at McDonald's just to get away from the hostile environment. Corporate was not doing anything, and HR was basically accusing him of making it up, and sided with Dale that Jacob deserved the write-ups. We were on to our spring projects when news came out that during an interview Jacob fell asleep. The woman, let's call her Kathy, told Dale that she was concerned for his health. Kathy is a case of her own. She had no experience in our department, and only got the job because her office was next to Dale's, despite multiple qualified people applying for it. Individual leaders of group projects across the company applied, some who had 15+ years of experience. Most of us didn't like Kathy because she'd give us a project that really never made any sense, or suggest an idea that virtually couldn't work or would make the project longer to complete. Dale put Jacob on temporary leave, but then instantly hired a replacement. The replacement was a kid, barely an adult, 18 years old, and also had no experience. Now our department was ran by people who had no idea what they're doing, and easy for Dale to push around, I expect. According to one of my senior co-workers, she saw Dale and the replacement at lunch together, always talking, so you can imagine how annoyed we were. So now, considering Dale having written Jacob up numerous times, we suspected he was going to fire him, regardless of if this was a health concern or not. Turns out it was. Jacob had learned a month later, after a lot of visits to the doctor, head scans, blood work, he had lymphoma. Secondary lymphoma that traveled to his brain. Only a day or 2 after he found out, he passed away. It broke all of our hearts to hear that. While I grieved, I decided to skip straight to the anger stage and would grieve my own way after I got my revenge. I went to St. Jude's Cancer Research page and signed up to donate once a month to the lymphoma research. With my money, but with his work email and work address. If you've ever donated to St. Jude, they let you choose to donate the amount in honor of someone, in which I chose Jacob. My boss would then get an email thanking him in honor of his donation to Jacob for lymphoma cancer research. I don't even care if he cancels the subscription to the emails. I just wanted him to get the single one email thanking him for the donation. And maybe some mail about donating. This happened many years ago, but I felt like sharing. To honor Jacob, I bought a pinned Asian blue bee with a paper in the display that says "Be Thoughtful." It's a reminder to always be thoughtful of what other people are going through. Alright, story number 3. That's Not Funny, Go Home for the Weekend, by Just Here or There Again. Sorry, my brain stopped working for a moment. Over 20 years ago, I changed an old-timer's computer screensaver. You know, the one that just had a word banner scrolling over and over? I worked in sales. There was an old guy named Bob. He was annoying, maybe because I was young, but he annoyed everyone. The kind of old guy that would lie through his teeth to get some of your commission. Being older, he had more freedoms with customers. It drove us crazy. He would let people leave, or they wanted to buy but wanted to use a coupon. He would disconnect the call or get rid of a customer a few different ways. That meant we, as other associates, couldn't make the sale. As a team, we couldn't hit bonuses. He would do many other things like this that would just drive you crazy. He was just a difficult coworker and a bad employee. But we had been around the industry a long time, so guys that were now managers favored him because of their past, whether it was because of this company or others. He was just annoying, too many reasons to list why, and I was young and didn't have much of a care, and you know, different perception of professionalism when I was a kid. So one day I changed his screensaver to say, "Bob is a jackass." I watched him type in his password, waited until he left, then changed it. It scrolled across his screen over and over, and he didn't notice at first. It looked like the same old, "Have a nice day," or whatever was scrolling. We all would giggle as we walked by and saw it. It was just funny to see. A day or so later, he is sitting in his cubicle, chatting away. His screensaver must have popped up. You hear, "What is this?" as he reads, "Bob is a jackass. Who did this? This is defamation. Who did it?" The office is laughing. He is pissed. Goes right in the manager's desk. "Someone is defaming my name. This is workplace harassment. I want to know who did it." He takes it to HR, even to the owner's office. We don't know anything other than him complaining to the manager. The manager saying, "Let's see," seeing it, giggling himself, then telling Bob, "Come on, calm down, I'll change it," which he did. "Let's go take a walk and talk." Bob is not having it, but they walk off talking. I assume trying to explain to Bob that he is in fact a jackass and should maybe be less of a jackass and things like that won't happen. Well, one would hope. We go back to work, not thinking about it anymore. About an hour or two later, a different manager says, "Hey, Mr. Johnson wants to see you upstairs." Cool, it wasn't uncommon. He would call associates up for customers or tasks, or reviews or whatever. As soon as I get in the office, he says, "What the fuck are you doing? Are you trying to get me sued? This guy's an absolute nightmare. Do you know he has sued that company and won?" "Why would you do that? You know what's on security camera, right? Using someone else's password. You're not supposed to use or share passwords ever." I said it was a joke. None of us thought it was that big of a deal. We often share passwords so we can get info we need. We're all on the same team. He replied, "It's a policy violation. That's it. You better hope I can keep him from causing a bigger issue. Go home for the next 3 days. You're suspended. Get out of my office. Get out of my building now." I walked out the back door, down the back stairs to my car, and was gone. This was Wednesday, so that meant I had a 5-day weekend. Heck yes, I was stoked. As I make it to my car, I can hear someone yelling, "Hey, James, Peggy wants to see you." Peggy was the HR lady. I ignored it, backed out, and drove the other direction. 15 minutes later, my phone is ringing. I am not answering, no way. Those were the days cell minutes were expensive. I get home, tell my wife I have a 5-day weekend. It's barely 12 o'clock. We head out to hit the beach, about 3.5 hours away. We are excited. About an hour later, my phone is called over and over. My wife just says answer it, so I do. "Hey, James, this is Peggy. I need you to sign some forms about the 3-day suspension." "Sorry, Peggy, I was told to leave. I left. I'm now out of town. I will have to sign another time." She's not thrilled, but not much we can do. The audacity to send you home for 3 days and expect you to come back sign forms. Then a moment later, another call is my direct supervisor. "James, where are you?"
We need the numbers put together for this client coming in today, and you had the presentation stored on, and this and that, and where are you?
Mr. Johnson sent me home for messing with Bob's screensaver.
Nobody told me. Why didn't you come down and tell me? Well, come back and give me the reports and send the files to me.
I'm sorry, I was told to leave the building right now. I actually already left town. Because you commit. I'm over an hour away and won't be turning around.
Then give me your password.
I can't do that either. I was told not to share them. Sorry, sir. My phone minutes are being used and I can't talk much longer. I don't know what to tell you. Mr. Johnson sent me home. Said leave and said not to share passwords. I'm about to go through the coastal hills and will lose reception.
Be here first thing tomorrow morning. We need to keep these projects moving.
Well, sir, I won't be back until Monday. I was told to leave for 3 days.
You have to be kidding. He didn't mean 3 days. I will talk with him.
I turned my phone off. Back then, turning your phone off wasn't like turning off a smartphone, so no big deal. But Sunday, when I listened to messages, my manager was telling me Mr. Johnson didn't realize we had projects in the works that I was leading, and that he wants me to come back the next day. Then the next day, his message was my manager saying Mr. Johnson is okay if I provide my password to the manager just this time. Hey, he said leave, I left. He said no sharing. No sharing. Nothing happened. They made or didn't make the deal, maybe postponed it. Wasn't my problem anymore. They worked up new reports and half-assed presentations. It was all back to normal. It wasn't like I was in trouble, nope. Had my days off and some more, back to work Monday making a sale. And when you're in sales, problems go away if you sell something. Story number 4 is anonymous. Let's start with a brief background. I had a friend that I'm just going to call Pat through middle high school and into college. Pat was pretty cool for the most part until we got to college. He did not like the boyfriend I had at the time, which, to be fair, he was right about. I was young and stupid and needed to learn things for myself in that regard. When we got to college, he got weirdly controlling. Like telling me I needed to do certain things, almost as if he was making demands. And then he would get really mad at me if I didn't do what he wanted me to do. Oh, I think we know what Pat is. Examples include me not dumping the boyfriend, continuing with the degree I was enrolled in to pursue, who I should hang out with, what hobbies I should have, etc. This all started to come to a head when I decided to move off campus. I was living in the dorms, and it was not a good fit for me for so many reasons. I'm the kind of person that needs their own space, and is so neurotic they can't really share a bathroom with more than a few people. When I first stated I was going to move off campus, Pat obviously had opinions. I obviously ignored him. I ended up moving in with a couple of really excellent friends, and this arrangement worked really well for about a year. At the end of the year, one friend was dropping out and the other was relocating for work. Our house was not close to campus, so it would be difficult for me to maintain the lease and find other roommates willing to live that far from campus. I figured it would be easier for me to find some other group looking for one more person to share bills with. Pat was still very upset that I was living off campus for God knows what reason. He really felt that I needed to be on campus. Why this was so important to him is beyond me. Even to this day, I don't get it. Because you were his. No one else's. How dare you move away from him? He had also gotten progressively more weird towards me, especially when it came to me not allowing him to dictate my life choices. I started talking to people on campus to locate a group that needed one more for housing. There were a couple of groups of girls that I talked to, and things had gone well. We had even discussed meeting up for me to see the room in the house that they were looking at. With both of these groups, when it came time to pinning down an actual date and time, I got ghosted. I know I didn't have many friends, but I also hadn't made any enemies on campus. I was very confused. I ended up finding a roommate that wanted to move off campus, and we found a really cute 2-bedroom house. We signed all the paperwork and paid deposits, and started the process of organizing our move-in. There was still about a month of summer left. Our lease wasn't going to start until August. This is important later. While discussing the details, this roommate, Desiree, made a comment about some warning Pat had given her regarding being my roommate. It turns out that Pat was finding out who I was talking to regarding roommate situations, and essentially painting me out to be some kind of high-drama, crazy, filthy bitch. That would not make a good roommate. I was livid. Well, he did want drama. Here's the thing, though. Pat was going to be an RA for the upcoming school year. This was the era of live journal. Pat had a public live journal, based off of Pat's behavior toward me and his desire to play fast and loose with my housing situation. I thought that certainly he must be okay with me returning the favor. I sent the head of residential life a link to Pat's live journal. Pat's live journal detailed how he intended to sell alcohol and drugs to the students he was supposed to be overseeing as an RA. Pat lost his ability to be an RA due to his live journal. This happened a month before school started. He had a month to find a solution for his living arrangements. He was allowed to remain in the dorms, but he was not allowed to be in a position of authority. While he suspected me, he could never prove it. I had used an email I made for the sole purpose of sending it to the head of residential life, and again, his live journal was public. He had made enemies on campus because he had turned out to be that kind of jerk to more than just me. He did confront me on it, and I remember telling him something along the lines of, "I'm willing to treat people exactly how they treat me." Then asked him if he had done anything to me that would make me feel that this would be appropriate treatment for him to receive from me. He dropped it after that, either because he knew that I knew, or maybe he genuinely thought I didn't know and he didn't want to admit what he was doing to my face. Probably didn't want to admit just how much of a fucking creepy stalker he was being. Hey. Fifth and final story. Stolen Hat, Denied Accountability, and Missed Ride by Jerko23. Okay, so the story begins almost 7 years ago. I was with some pals out bar crawling, partying, all around having a great time. With me I had my glorious Aussie hat. It worked with most of my outfits. I was glued to that accessory. Our night ended at a place of one of the guys who will now on be known as Jay, and we crashed at his place. In the morning we said our goodbyes, bye, and were off each to our own business. Except as I remembered around 3 p.m. that day, I left my hat at Jay's place. I shot him a quick message to bring it with him to our next hangout and forgot about it. Our next hangout came, he forgot, and another and another. Every time he has another colourful excuse as to why he forgot, even if I messaged him profusely throughout the day. For him, it's kind of reminding me of that episode of What We Do in the Shadows with the witch's hat. Messaged him profusely throughout the day for him not to forget this time. I offered multiple times that I would come to his place, myself, and grab it, but it was never quite the right time. And lo and behold, a few months after he said he lost it, he was looking for it to finally bring it to me, as I was such a pain in his ass asking for my hat back. And I couldn't find it. He turned his place upside down, which was probably why I had trouble finding it, but it was nowhere to be found. I said, okay, then I assume you will reimburse me for the cost. It was around €70, not that expensive, but still not an insignificant amount, and I loved that hat. He went off on me as if I was crazy. What the hell am I thinking? He to pay for my hat? Am I insane? I can take that request and shove it where the sun don't shine. I, being not really a confrontational person at that point in my life, left it pretty much at that. I brought it up jokingly a few times, poking at him whenever we were in the group setting, and he would be bragging about how much money he was making off his gigs. He's an aspiring musician. As time went by, I started avoiding group hangouts whenever he would be there, and the group itself slowly dissolved, as we all grew up and started having more and more obligations and responsibilities, as groups of friends often do. 7 years passed. The group seldomly had collective hangouts. A few members stayed connected individually. I stayed in great relations with L. Some moved to other cities. Suddenly one of the guys had moved to a city about 300 kilometers from our hometown, heard 3 more guys are coming to a conference that would be held in that city, and offered to host us all for an all-inclusive, full-week hangout just like old times. We would play games, swim, basketball, drink, watch parody movies. We were all very excited. especially Jay, who had a gig offer nearby to the city where we were all going, and he could combine business with pleasure. Something worth mentioning is that Jay got his driver's license suspended due to a DUI, so he naturally couldn't drive. So in the group chat, Jay asked Elle how he was planning to travel. Elle said that I was driving, and that he would come with me. Jay asked to tag along. I said, why, of course, your fee for the trip is €103.5. This was very unusual, as I never asked anyone for gas money, especially if I was already going in that direction. And even if I did, 15 to 20 euros is fair for a trip that distance, definitely not $103.50. Now, if Jay was an emoji, he would be that red pissed off one. He would always get mad when things didn't go his way. He started arguing about the pricing, so I itemized it. Gas money, tolls, stolen hat, denied accountability for years. It adds up to $103.50. Now, the whole group was laughing and making fun of him in the chat, and that only pissed him off more. He said he wouldn't pay that ridiculous price, and that I better show myself in front of his place the day of the trip if I know what's good for me. I mean, what's he going to do? He's got no way to get to you. Mind you, usually when you're asking someone to drive you somewhere, you meet him at his place, but he had a bunch of expensive amplifying equipment and his guitar for his gig, so he couldn't even do that. I had to come to him. I stopped replying in the chat, so he probably assumed the deal was done. So on the day of, Elle and I drove off. We had an amazing time, laughing in the car, debating Jay's reaction when he found out he was left to dry. Soon after, when we were about 45 minutes out, Jay asked in the group chat when we were coming for him and why we were late. Elle wrote on my behalf as I was driving that we were already on the road. At first he jokingly asked when did I grow a spine. Haha, jokes. But seriously, when are you guys going to come get me? Then Elle sent him a funny photo of me at the wheel. He went Hulk angry. Caps Lock was on. Oh no, not Caps Lock. And to cut out the very creative set of insults, we were asked to come back for him. Like the drama queens they are, all the other guys quickly got in the chat and stoked the fire, which only served to make him even more mad. I was quite impressed how he could call Elle me and at the same time type that fast and creatively. That lasted for around 15 minutes, during which he speed-ran appropriate stages of grief. I extended him an olive branch. Pay your dues and we will come back and get you. He tried to haggle for a lower price. But as I said, that price can only get higher the longer we drive, as the distance we would have to return for him increases. Not to mention the added cost of fuel for having to haul his equipment. He finally relented. He transferred the amount into my account. It was Instapay, so not possible to call a bank and get a charge back. Now this is the glorious part of my revenge. I sent him back 15 euros, told him I was refunding him for the trip part of the charge, as we won't be coming back for him, since I didn't really feel like it. I was laughing so hard I had to pull over, as I felt I wasn't the safest participant on the road. He demonstratively left the group chat, as he did many times before. I had no doubts he would be asked to be added as soon as he cooled off. So yeah, that happened this morning. His gig is in the evening. I have my reservations about him being able to make it, as taking the bus or the train isn't really an option due to the amount of clunky equipment he has to carry, and odds of finding a sucker to drive him there and back are astronomically low. I just opened a new beer, and it's not even 2 p.m. God, I love vacations. Okay, that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, you can sign up for my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. $1 or more gets you early access to all the videos at once on Monday. There's also a link to my merchandise store over on Teespring, as well as my Discord server, my Threads account, and my email is kingofthecities@gmail.com if you need to contact me. That's everything for now, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.